If you want to keep up to date with all things Kingdom Hearts and this channel, then make sure to subscribe with notifications on. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube? My name is Prodigy and welcome to another Kingdom Hearts video on the channel. Today guys, we're going to be reading a Melody of Memory interview from Game Informer, interviewing both the series director Tetsuya Nomura, the co-director Masanobu Suzu, and the producer Ichiro Hazama. They all get asked different questions throughout this Game Informer interview, but we're going to go ahead and get right into it. Can you discuss the creative process and how the team approached bringing Kingdom Hearts to a new genre? The idea was floating around for a while. It was around 5 years ago. Suzu and I kept thinking, oh, we would love to do a Theatrhythm Kingdom Hearts. We were discussing it, making planning documents and things like that, but at the time we decided that it might be a bit difficult to move forward with the project. A few years ago, there was a separate discussion with Nomura, San, and Disney. Disney actually came forward to Nomura-san asking, hey, could you do this with us? They decided that they wanted to move forward with the project, and then the discussion came down to me and Suzu-san to do this project, and that's how this project came to be. That's very interesting that it was something brought up a couple of years ago, because I was definitely under the impression they just randomly decided to do this game after a remind. But that's nice to know that it was in the works for quite some time, that they wanted to do it for quite some time, which was clear based off of like previous past interviews with Nomura, mostly the Kingdom Hearts Orchestra interviews. But that's really nice to know. I wonder if it was always planned to release now though. It does look very similar to Theatrhythm's gameplay, and Square Enix had entries for Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest in that series. Why is Melody of Memory a separate spin-off rather than a new Theatrhythm game? As we mentioned earlier, we were talking about how we had come up with the rough ideas and planning documents, but as we were discussing how we go about creating this particular title with Nomura-san, we were keen on making this 3D, but Final Fantasy Theatrhythm, you may recall we had this side-scrolling, very 2D sort of aesthetics. And then in terms of Dragon Quest, it was more of a top view where your battles are sort of going inward. There's like this field of depth. With Kingdom Hearts, we wanted to pursue the idea of utilizing the original characters. We wanted to recreate the original look of the game titles and carry that over. We also took inspiration from Kingdom Hearts 15th anniversary music site. From there, we started to think, okay, so how do we incorporate different elements? And Nomura-san provided feedback and a lot of the inspiration that went into the basic idea. We took that as well as some of the technical elements and the mechanics that were already existing in Theatrhythm titles, and then thought about what kind of music and what kind of scheme of the notes that we want for players to experience. We wanted to incorporate those fun elements of play and make sure that we are leveraging the game mechanics of the original game, as well as bringing in Kingdom Hearts stylish action and incorporating the rich story behind it, especially the world settings that we've established in our series titles. We asked, how do we leverage and keep the integrity of that? That was our foundation for our approach. From there we thought, okay, so we're going to build this from the ground up and we're going to bring this as a brand new title. That's why we decided we're going to change up the name and we weren't going to carry over the Theatrhythm title. We thought it would be appropriate and proper to have that Kingdom Hearts name. That's how we moved along with the development of it. We all had the same understanding amongst our team members, and that this is not a Theatrhythm game. Nomura-san also felt that way, so we came up with a really nice name for this title and a really nice key art as well, and we kind of expanded from there. Woo, that was a long answer, but that's really cool to think, because you know how Nomura is. It doesn't matter what type of Kingdom Hearts game it is, it's probably going to end up canon. The only Kingdom Hearts games that didn't end up canon were the Kingdom Hearts games that weren't even made by Nomura or barely had any involvement from him or Square Enix, like Kingdom Hearts VCast for example, or things of that nature. Everything else is completely canon to the Kingdom Hearts series, and Melody of Memory is no exception. And it's kind of funny that they're all kind of on the same page about that. They're like, hey, you know this game ought to be canon, right? Yeah, but continuing though, we will see lots of remixes to songs, or are you mostly sticking to the originals? Generally speaking, we'll be using the original music. We didn't want to take away from the gameplay experience from the different titles in our franchise, but that being said, certain parts of the game like the title menu or the staff credits will have songs that incorporate a new arrangement by Miss Shimomura, so that's something to look forward to. Yo, that's hype. Are there any new tracks in the game that we haven't heard before? No, there will not be any new tracks. tracks. But they just said that, okay, I guess those don't count, the opening and ending. With over 140 songs in the game, can we expect music from every world we visited in the Kingdom Hearts series, or are some being left out? We actually looked at all the tracks that were available. We revisited all the different CDs from the past and counted all the songs. Of course, we couldn't keep a catalog of the most recent Kingdom Hearts games, like 2.8, or some of the songs in Kingdom Hearts 3. We haven't gotten the full count of all the other songs that are in there, but it ended up being around 600 to 700 songs, so unfortunately, there may be some songs that are not included in Melody of Memory. That being said, from vast library, we tried to carefully select the songs, and it's a very rich selection of over 140 songs. Yeah, 140 songs is way less than the full amount of songs that are in Kingdom Hearts. I kind of figured that much because each Kingdom Hearts game goes on to having close to 100 different songs in it. So I knew definitely that Melody of Memories wasn't going to cover every song from the series. Probably a lot of the big ones, however. How do they approach designing the different levels and making sure the backdrops match the essence of the song? The primary game mode that you will be playing through is what we call World Trip. You're literally going through the experience in order from Kingdom Hearts 1 and following it with the game's story. You're looking back at the experience through the music and the gameplay, and there are various movie clips of the story that you get to experience through it. In some parts, there's some narration by Kairi, and then once you clear a few songs and different missions, you open up a gate to move on to the next section. As you progress through the game, of course, there will be different difficulties with the songs. You may notice that the enemies that appear in these stages will be from the original games, and we tried to structure it so that you're re-experiencing the different iconic moments and symbolic elements with each of the songs. Also, the enemies that you encounter will move very similarly to how they first appeared in the original titles. You experience the overall game arc as you progress through these different songs. With the narrative, it's what we call the Dark Seeker Saga, which has been throughout all the Kingdom Hearts titles up to Kingdom Hearts 3. We traverse through all the different key elements through that saga in order. That's the general flow. And then with the tempo and the mood of each of the stages, we have some boss battles prepared as well. Those do tend to be a little bit more on the difficult side, so there's a good variation of difficulty levels as you play through. Now, that being said, we understand that there may be players who might not be as comfortable with playing rhythm action games, and so we made sure to design the game so that players are able to complete their missions no matter what difficulty they choose. They're essentially talking about that one button mode that Nomura mentioned on Twitter one day. Kingdom Hearts is an action RPG. What kind of progression system will we see in Melody of Memory in terms of new abilities and leveling up? The progression system for Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory is leveling because it's a rhythm action game. It was a bit too difficult to differentiate the different moves and the actions within the gameplay, but through leveling, your character will gain higher HP, so you won't get a game over easily, which should be beneficial when you're trying to clear the different stages. Plus, as you level, your attack power will also increase. Of course, bosses will need a few extra hits, but as you level up, become stronger, and you won't take as long to stun them to get an advantage on attacking the bosses, and you'll get a bonus for that. There is no ability system that you would be bolstering throughout the process. Each leader will have 2 different types of range and melee attacks, but that's about it. As long as I'm able to pick Xion, that's what matters. How will online battles work in the game? Oh, I'm interested in that. Similarly to Theatrhythm Current Call, there is a versus match, but we expanded on that where you have 1 player versus 1 player and you compete for the higher score, and as you win, your rating will go up. With online battles, one of the mechanics is called tricks, where you're trying to not exactly sabotage, but get in the way of the other players so that they might trip. The goal is to get as many points without failing or tripping in your gameplay and competing for who gets the better scores, my bad. We discussed this a little bit with Kairi's narration, but what can we expect from the story and Kairi's involvement in it? Okay, this is a Nomura answer. So Kairi is going to be our storyteller, so to speak. What she is doing is reflecting upon the previous iteration and the history of the narrative. She is going to be talking about all of what happens within Kingdom Hearts, and she's going to be bringing you through this story. story. And so her positioning, I'm afraid we can't delve too far into details because it will be quite a bit of a spoiler, and she is relevant to a very big part of the plot. But what she does tell through her recollection is not just the experiences that she went through, but it's all the experiences that her allies and the party members had experienced throughout the story as well. And once we go through the story of recollection and beyond that, we start to see a timeline that will connect to the future. Is this going to bring closure to where we left off Kairi at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3 and Remind DLC? With Melody of Memory, the timeline fits immediately after the story of Remind, but with that being said, the story volume is not going to be as large as a mainline Kingdom Hearts title. Yep, I figured. So you may not see too big of a movement in Kairi's time and in her narrative. Still, I think you might get a glimpse of where this might be going through this title. It's quite difficult to not spoil it, but still try to explain it at the same time. But with Kairi, her childhood is still shrouded in mystery. We haven't really delved deep into that part of her narrative, so you might be able to see a glimpse of that through Melody of Memory. But that being said, again, it's not meant to advance things significantly through this game. Yeah, so basically, like I figured, Melody of Memory is going to have like some narrative. It's probably going to position us for the next title, but it's not going to move the plot drastically forward like your mainline Kingdom Hearts game, which is to be expected. I mean, this game is only coming out this year, or is already coming out this year. We already got Remind and Dark Road and some Union Cross updates, so yeah, more story is still pretty cool. The gummy ship was featured in trailers. How is that going to work in the game? It's kind of unfortunate this is going to be the last question, because the gummy ship is just strictly going to be for transportation purposes, traveling between worlds. Unfortunately, we won't have any sort of light customization elements or anything like that. That was unfortunate to be the last question. The last question before that question fit more as the last question, don't you think? I said last question a lot. But yeah, that was the interview. They had a lot of lengthy answers. That's why I didn't try to like speculate or talk too much in between reading, because I wanted to just stay on track and get to what they were talking about. But that was definitely a very interesting interview. That was a very insightful interview, because they actually did reveal a lot of how the game is going to be working and clarified some things that a lot of fans had answers for that I made videos about previously curious on. So this game is going to have new Kairi story, and that is going to be a focus of this game, but it won't be the focus. The focus of the game is mostly going to be recollecting the memories, I guess, that happened throughout the Kingdom Hearts series. And the new story bits are going to be Kairi's backstory and whatever is happening whenever she wakes up, I guess. So I'm very curious as to what's going to go on with that. But other than that though, for today's video, this is going to be about it though. I really did enjoy this interview though. Thank you guys for watching. Leave a like, share the video with a friend or a family member, and last but not least, if you're not already and want to become a part of the Union, all you have to do is hit that red little subscribe button down below. My name is Prodigy, and I will talk to you guys soon. Peace out, guys.